What's up, side hustlers, entrepreneurs, business builders, and dream makers? Welcome to the Sell Your Side Hustle Podcast, episode 45. Today's a very special episode. We have a good friend of mine, Nathan Hirsch, on. If you haven't heard of Nathan, he is a lifelong entrepreneur and focuses on the unsexy, boring parts of entrepreneurship, like bookkeeping and hiring. He's currently the CEO of Ecom Balance, Accounts Balance, and Outsource School. Nathan's probably best known for co-founding FreeUp back in 2015. He had an initial investment of $5,000 and he scaled that to a $12 million annual revenue. And then he had it acquired in 2019. So today he runs Ecom Balance and Account Balance, online monthly bookkeeping service for ecom and digital businesses, and a company called Outsource School, which is a membership that teaches owners how to hire effectively online. Nathan's appeared in over 700 podcasts, including now the Sell Your Side Hustle podcast. And if you guys want to connect with him, I'll have the link in the description to follow him on LinkedIn. Nathan, other than what I just said, what should people know about you?
No, I mean, that was a good summary. I love just building businesses and being an entrepreneur. And you and I were kind of chatting before, like entrepreneurship, sure, hopefully there's success, but there's plenty of failure and lessons and hard times as well. And so you kind of got to enjoy the journey and know what you're getting into up front.
I want to be respectful of the reality that what seems to be your main focus right now is ecom balance, account balance. Outsource School also seems to be something that you promote a lot. Am I correct in saying that ecom balance and account balance is the main focus and Outsource School is somewhat secondary, or is that a misunderstanding?
Yeah, I don't know about secondary. I mean, Connor and I have a goal of building a portfolio of businesses, and
Gotcha.
We kind of look at Outsource School as a really nice passive income stream for us that helps a lot of people. And it definitely doesn't take us 50 hours a week or anything like that. And Accounts Balance and Ecom Balance is kind of a new, fun, exciting thing for us. I mean, we were in the VA space for 4 years with FreeUp, and Outsource School is obviously still in the VA space. So it's been fun for us to get out of it. And I mean, whenever you're selling a course or membership, that's way different than selling a monthly bookkeeping service or any kind of service. So that's kind of how we look at it. There's a lot more moving parts. Outsource School is a pretty small team. Ecom Balance, Accounts Balance has a whole team of bookkeepers and team leaders and a US controller and all of that kind of stuff. So it's different, but I mean, hopefully we run both these businesses for the next 20 years. And next time you talk to me, we've bought or started something else. And that's kind of what our ultimate goal is.
Gotcha. I know. So you and I got dinner a couple months ago, and at that point in time, I asked you a lot about like your origin story. But I imagine my listeners probably haven't heard it. So are you cool if we like rewind all the way to before FreeUp even, and just how you got started as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So my parents were both teachers growing up, and they made me get a real job like immediately. When I was 14, 15, I was umpiring for my town, became a head umpire. I was always like raking leaves, and eventually got jobs at Aaron's, which is like a rent-a-center, and Firestone, the tire place. I was a sales intern there. So I was always had to pay for everything myself. If I wanted a car, I had to buy it. If I wanted a video game, I had to buy it. And I also learned very early on that I hated working for other people. Like I was good at it. I learned a lot. It was a great opportunity. And I definitely made more than other kids my age, but going into work every day and listening to a manager and watching the clock, that was not for me. And I kind of got a glimpse into what life was like after college. And if you go and get a real job, and I didn't want any part of it. So when I got to college, I actually majored in entrepreneurship. Even it was a brand new major, but I didn't really know what I was going to do. And you can only learn so much from a college class. So I started hustling and started off by buying and selling people's textbooks, competing with my school bookstore, created a little affiliate program for my college friends. And before I knew it, I had lines out the door of people trying to sell me their books. And I actually got a cease and desist letter from my college telling me to knock it off and stop competing with them. So that was my first real glimpse into being an entrepreneur. And this was 2008, 2009. No one really knew what Amazon or e-commerce was. And I had this Amazon account that I had been using to sell books on, and Amazon was bursting onto the scene with other products. And I started doing a ton of trial and error. And I kind of came up with the concept of drop shipping before I even knew it was called drop shipping. That word didn't even exist back then. But I went to all these US retailers and manufacturers that produced products, and I essentially said, hey, I have this sales channel. I'm good at selling products on Amazon. I don't have money to buy inventory. I don't have any place to store inventory. Keep my credit card on file, ship it where I tell you to. I'll mark it up. You can charge me retail prices, which I later negotiated down. But that was kind of the business. And before I knew it, like this really took off. And through trial and error, I kind of learned what like couches are too heavy to ship and a pain to return. And like video games, you can't really mark them up because everyone's selling them for the same price. So I came across like baby products and toys. People would pay a lot for them. They're obviously in high demand. People have kids every day, so doesn't really go in and out. And yeah, so we kind of, if you can imagine me running this multi-million-dollar Amazon baby product drop shipping business out of my college dorm room as a single college guy, that was me. And it was a wild, crazy time. My partner and I, we had no idea what we were doing, making every mistake imaginable. One of which was just hiring a lot of college kids to run the company. And they were super unreliable, very frustrating. And we eventually hired our first virtual assistant, which was game changing and got me into that space. So Amazon's now getting harder to sell on. They're changing their algorithm. More and more people are learning about it, starting to sell. Competition's up. A lot of the manufacturers that we were selling their products wanted to just go directly to Amazon. Like they didn't really need us. We were just a middleman. And so we had all these VAs and freelancers that knew e-commerce, and we started to essentially sell the shovels to the people digging for gold. All the people becoming sellers that had their own brand and launching Amazon stores, Shopify stores. We provided VAs and freelancers for them, and that became the Free Up marketplace, which was a lot of fun for us. It was our first B2B. We had to learn marketing and sales and SEO and partnerships and all this stuff you didn't really have to do when you just list a product on Amazon. And we ended up scaling that for 4 years. We were acquired in 2019, which is a whole nother story we can get into if you want. And that was life-changing and really put Connor and I in a position where we can do whatever we want. And we enjoy starting businesses, but run them a different way. Free Up was 4 years of hustling and grinding and working 7 days a week and going to conferences. And now we don't work weekends. We don't work nights. We don't do any work travel. We're very selective on what we do and don't do. And I mean, the original plan when we sold Free Up was to travel the world and take a year off. We sold it in November 2019. So COVID hit like a few months later, stuck inside, nothing to do. And a buddy of mine pitched me an idea of a hiring course, and that became Outsource School. And then through just a lot of brainstorming, we came up with the bookkeeping business and did a lot of market research on that. So that's kind of the short, long story.
So I want to ask a couple questions about that, but one is just, do you think that your undergrad was actually helpful towards your career in hindsight, given that it was in entrepreneurship? Do you think it was actually applicable and helpful, or do you think it was just mom and dad want me to go to college and that was the degree that made the most sense to me?
It was definitely mom and dad wanted me to go to college. I mean, I actually asked them, I was like, hey, can you just like, they helped me a little. I had student loans or whatever. I was like, can we just like take some money or give me a loan to start a business? And they were like, no, you're going to college. But at the same time, I mean, college was like 4 of the most fun years of my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yeah. I met my business partner there. So like that alone is worth it. And there were certain things that I definitely learned in school, like going through an accounting class, very helpful. Like there were things that you apply. Did entrepreneurship really, like a degree in entrepreneurship, really teach me how to run a company? I would argue that I learned a lot more from just trial and error and doing and talking to other entrepreneurs and stuff like that. But I mean, if I could go back, like I wouldn't necessarily change anything.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm curious then, were there other things while you were in college that you were trying that were not successful, or was it all in on first the books, which then naturally gravitated to Amazon? Were there other things that you were also trying, or was that just a clear, direct path?
It's never a clear, direct path. I mean, my whole approach in business is like minimum viable product, see if something works. If it doesn't work, stop doing it and just try something else. So like when we launched Outsource School, we said, hey, we got a hiring course. We're going to offer it a discount. And if people buy it and they like it, great, we'll build off of it. If people hate it, we're just going to refund everyone and move on to something else. And same thing with Econ Balance and Accounts Balance. We gave all these people 2 free months of bookkeeping. In exchange, they give us feedback, help us break everything, help us build processes. And if people hated it, we'd again refund them and think of a different idea before we put like 2 years into it or lots of money into it or anything like that. And drop shipping was the same way. I mean, there was a lot of products that I tried to sell on Amazon that just didn't work. Like there was this person in my town that was selling poems on Amazon, these Mother's Day poems, and they were absolutely crushing it. Like they were getting so many sales of this poem that they would just put into a packaging and ship it from their house. And I talked about like buying their company because they were a little older and I didn't really have money to do that. But then I tried to create my own poem business and that failed pretty quickly. But it's not like I spent 8 months on it. I spent like 60 days on it and a few $100 and it didn't work. So I moved to something else. So there was a lot of that before kind of coming across baby products and toys. And there's definitely timing and good luck in there too. Like e-commerce was kind of bursting in as well. So there's lots of failures. There's not a direct line, but most of my failures are they're quick. They're not that painful. Like even though I'm an entrepreneur, I don't consider myself a real risk taker because like I start most of my businesses with $5,000 or less. So like I don't want to lose $5,000, but if I lose $5,000, that's way different than putting your life savings into something and crossing your fingers that it really works out. You know.
So how do you assess that? So how do you assess the tests? In my mind, there's this constant dichotomy that we're trying to navigate of there's the like sunk cost fallacy, right? The idea that because I've put so much into this, I have to keep going. But on the flip side, there's also the idea of well, have I actually done a sufficient test to know if this is going to work or not? And it sounds like with the number of iterations that you've done, you probably is it a gut check, or do you have like an actual way of analyzing if it's a failed test or if it isn't a finished test yet?
I think it is it at first it was a gut check now or a gut test. Now it's very much like Connor and I will put a limit on something. We're like, hey, if this isn't working by June 1st, we're going to stop doing it. And we hold each other accountable to it because you can go down that path where you're like, hey, it's like gambler's fallacy or sunk cost where you like put all this money into something, so you have to see it through. And I don't really believe in that at all. I kind of go into everything like entrepreneurship's hard. 99% chance you fail. You have to know that going in. If you're not okay with that, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And any business idea, no matter how good it is, could fail for so many reasons. I mean, you could do everything right. You could even have good timing, and there could be a competitor that comes in and wipes you away. Like AI right now, who knows? Like, do I think it's going to take down the bookkeeping industry? No. Could it? Sure. Like there's a non-0% chance of that happening. So you kind of have to like approach everything like that and kind of go into everything where you're experimenting. And the other beauty of it is when you start in one direction, it doesn't necessarily mean that you finish there or end there. Like I started off trying to build a textbook business. I was like, hey, textbooks make a lot of money. Let's do that. And I ended up selling baby products on Amazon. So you have to be able to make those adjustments and pivot and not just be like, oh, like I love poems. Like it's all I'm going to do. Like that's what I'm passionate about. That's not really my approach. We're trying things and we're adjusting based on what the market's saying. And as you get older too, you do more market research. Like we interviewed 100 e-commerce sellers before we launched Ecom Balance. And if the result of that feedback was there's a lot of good e-commerce bookkeepers, there's no room in the space, people aren't willing to pay for it, we're not starting that business. So that's even before we put money in now.
That makes sense. So one thing that I think is interesting is I think if I saw you online and I didn't know you on any personal level, if we'd never had a conversation, I would look at what you're doing right now and they would feel disconnected to me personally. When I look at Outsource School and I look at Ecom Account Balance, they feel disconnected. But knowing you, what I see is the journey of solving a problem and then solving a problem and then solving a problem. Like when you start with selling textbooks and your school tells you, hey, stop or we're going to sue you. And you go, okay, I'll stop selling textbooks, but I already have an Amazon store, so let's sell something else. And then you build an Amazon store to where it's doing very well and you have a team of virtual assistants in an environment where people don't know how virtual assistants work. Like this is probably the time era when like 4-Hour Workweek is probably becoming a popular book, right? So people know the idea, but they don't really know how to implement. Then you go, okay, well, let's actually just start a two-sided marketplace because we already have one of the sides. And that's kind of what FreeUp is, right? It's a two-sided marketplace. After that's acquired and you say, okay, what's next? Well, one thing that just seems almost intuitive is, do you still have that skill set? So bottling it into a course and making Outsource School makes perfect sense. I'm guessing like you said that the idea of bookkeeping was kind of pitched to you, and so you did market research. But I'm guessing you probably also learned a lot about bookkeeping by running multiple successful companies prior. And so I see this as I guess in a way, to me, this is similar to the way that I look at the businesses that Elon Musk starts, where all he's doing is solving a problem. And I don't know, if I were to ask you what your superpower is, do you think that I hit it right, that your superpower might be just solving hard problems? Or is it
Yeah, I
something
mean,
else?
that's probably fair. I mean, I kind of see the disconnect too. Like, again, what is our ultimate goal? Our ultimate goal is to own a portfolio of businesses that don't necessarily have to do with each other. Like, we don't want all our businesses to be in finance or all our businesses to be in the VA space. So while my like personal brand is semi important, I would argue that it's not that important. Like the real goal is the real goal. So I don't really necessarily care if people like see the connect. If I have good businesses that people are happy with, that check the boxes that we care about, like that's what's most important to me. We've done brainstorming on this. Like, that's why my new like personal brand is the unsexy entrepreneur, the boring entrepreneur, to kind of put it more together so people in their mind can relate to it. And I kind of see the importance in that on some level. But I mean, the best hire I ever made was a bookkeeper from the day one of FreeUp. Like, that's a fact. With the Amazon business, we tried doing bookkeeping ourselves. We were always behind. We never knew what our numbers were. We couldn't make decisions on a monthly basis. With FreeUp, we put our foot down from day one. We're like, I don't know if FreeUp is going to succeed or fail, but if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. We're going to have a bookkeeper. We're going to get reports every month. We're going to make decisions based on what the numbers are telling us. And yes, it helped us sell the company and pass due diligence because we had 4 years of immaculate books, and that helped a lot. But more importantly, just helped us make good decisions every month. So, I mean, part of it is we know the value in it because we've run businesses that had a good bookkeeper and businesses that didn't. And the other side of it is we like certain business models. We don't want to create the next Uber. We want something that applies to lots of businesses. Like, every business needs to hire, every business needs to do bookkeeping, whether they want to or not. And we like other things, like we like reoccurring revenue and stickiness. Like, most people don't switch their bookkeeper. It's billing every month. You and I were chatting before about like one-time projects. Like, I don't really like businesses like that. I don't think they're scalable. So it checks boxes that we like. And in between Outsource School and starting Econ Balance, we brainstorm a lot of bad ideas that we just like failed for any reason. And it's kind of one of those things where you brainstorm 100 and hopefully you come up with one. So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, no, that makes sense though, and I would say the other connection that I see, like I said, I see this pathway where the experience seems like it's leaning towards the next thing, but the other connection I see is I think I think it might be fair that since FreeUp, everything you've done has served the same audience base. So I like when you think of like a perfect joint venture. A perfect joint venture is somebody who serves the same audience differently, and that's what your companies kind of are to each other, right? Like if I am running an ecom business and I'm scaling and I'm growing, yeah, I want to learn how to make good hires, and I should also hire a bookkeeper, right? Like, those are two things that I would want to know that you could help with your two companies. So that's a connection I see. I don't think you did answer the question because it was, what's your superpower?
Superpower.
But I dig it.
Yeah. What's my superpower?
To me, it looks from the outside like it might earnestly just be problem solving, like solving the
Yeah.
next problem.
I almost look at it as like internal problem solving. Like, one of the things that I think I bring value to in the companies is like, like a lot of people focus on the good stuff. I'm always looking for what's going wrong and how do I solve it? Like, if leads aren't converting, all right, what can we change in our sales page? What can we change in the funnel? How are we changing phone calls? So that's kind of what we're doing, what I do, and with like a fine tooth comb. And then the other side of it is just like consistency and building relationships and finding those right partners, whether it's getting on podcasts or finding affiliates or just using connections to get to other connections. Like, I'm very consistent at just doing that every day. That I think helps the company. And obviously hiring and delegating is just a big thing too. I think that's a very underrated entrepreneurship skill. Like, if I want something done, I'm not, how do I take a course to learn how to do it? I'm like, how do I find someone to do this for me as quickly as possible, you know?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of looking at the time here, and I kind of just want to make a pivot because selfishly, I want to ask you about a very particular experience that you've had back in 2019. Because I don't know how long, like, I want to ask you about the acquisition process. I want to ask you what it looked like selling Free Up, and I want to hear that story. And just kind of like being intentional about the time here. Probably what I'm most interested in is the moment that everything was done, the deal closed, and I'm imagining probably through a wire. Suddenly, there's all these zeros in a bank account. Like, take me to literally that moment. What did it feel like? How did you celebrate? What was the next 24 hours like for you?
Yeah. So let's see. So early 2019, we got approached by one of our clients, Mark Hargrove, David Martin, and their message to us was pretty much like, we like Free Up, we use Free Up, we want to get into the VA freelancer space. We don't start businesses, we buy businesses. They have a whole portfolio of companies, kind of like where Connor and I want to be. Would you guys be interested in being acquired? And up until that point, we had never really considered it, but we knew like the business had value and we'd grown it to a good level and it was super profitable and all of that. And we were kind of good either way. We like growing Free Up, and if it sold, great. If we kept running it, great too. And we kind of heard them out and we gave them information. They asked a lot of questions about the financials, and they ended up making us an offer that was really good. It was life-changing money. And our mentality at the time was like, this is pre-COVID, remember? So the economy was at an all-time high. We had grown this business to doing $12 million a year. We had never grown a business bigger than that. And we knew drastic things would have had to change to get it to 25 or 30 million. And that kind of came with its own risk. Could we have figured it out? Maybe. Could we have hurt the business or become less profitable or something? Definitely a possibility. And we also kind of thought of our team. We had a great team in the Philippines of 30 people. We kind of set a mark. Hey, we want to take $500,000 from the sale and give it to our team and change their lives. And if we turn down this deal and we're not able to do that, and then we run the company to the ground, remember 99% of businesses fail, and they don't necessarily fail in year one. They could fail in year 5, 6, 7, 8 as well. So there was a lot more competition. Like when we started Free Up, there weren't that many agencies and other services as well. So we didn't necessarily see writing on the wall, but we're like, all right, like it's possible the next 3 years are a lot harder than the previous 3 years. So that was kind of our thinking, and we ended up accepting the offer, and that was just the initial offer. So due diligence begins right after that. And that was the most stressful 6 months of my life by far. I mean, they're firing over questions to us every day. The best advice I ever received was to do due diligence on the buyers, just like they were doing it on us. So we want to know everything about them, their success, their failures, their plans for Free Up, how they treat their team. Like we didn't want to sell it to someone who's going to hurt our reputation, hurt our clients, hurt our team, not pay us, end up in a lawsuit down the line. Like we don't want any of that. We want to sell it to good people, and we would rather sell it to good people and make a little less money than sell it to some a-hole who we're just going to spend the next few years arguing with. So that was important to us. And I mean, the real slow part was just the lawyers. Like for us, it's the biggest moment of our life. For the lawyers, it's just another Tuesday. They're doing these deals every single day, and they go on vacation. Like they take a while to get back, and it wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. Like they're trying to protect themselves. We're trying to protect ourselves. The lawyers have a job to do. And that took 6 months. And when we finally agreed to everything, and a lot of phone calls later, Connor was in Denver. I was in Florida at the time. They were located in Florida, in Tampa. I was in Orlando. So Connor flew out to Orlando. We actually drove down to their office. And I mean, we woke up every day saying like, this deal's falling through, stay focused on the company. That was the other good advice I got. So credit to us. Like, and that was hard because the deeper you get in, the more you're like, this is happening. And we stayed focused on growing Free Up. And the last month, right before the deal closed, was the best month we'd ever have at Free Up. So we actually did that, even though it was really tough. So Connor flew down. We drove down there. We got to meet them, meet their team, sign the actual paperwork, get the money wired to our account, like checking our phone. All right, we got it. And we went out and celebrated with them. And while the post celebration was good, there was kind of a period in between that where we had to tell the team, because part of the agreement we had with Free Up is they couldn't talk to our team. We didn't let our team know because we didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And so we had to tell our team, which was very emotional. We have VAs that we had worked with on our Amazon business, then at Free Up that we'd worked with for years. Chicky Ann, one of my favorite VAs at all times, and I'm still really good friends with. Like, not working with her was definitely one of the hardest parts of Free Up. Like, we thought we'd work with her for the rest of our lives, and I mean, hopefully we can work together in the future at some point. But we had to tell our teams, and that it kind of softened the blow because we got to tell them like the amount of money that they were going to get and all of that. But that was tough. And once we actually told everyone and the emotions kind of ran its toll, then we could celebrate. Then we drove back to Orlando. Connor and I bought dinner. My wife was like waiting for us to celebrate and all of that. And it was right before Thanksgiving. So we were able to go home and celebrate with our families as well. So that was kind of the whole experience.
Cool. I'm glad that I picked that one question because we are basically on the time point now. So I'd ask more. I'm curious, but I'm gonna have to transition to my big question. If you're familiar with the Pareto distribution, the 80-20 rule is how it's usually oversimplified. It's actually a distribution. If you study statistics in college, you might learn about it. I did. And one of the cool things about it is that if you think of it as the 80-20 rule, then it's infinitely applicable to itself. 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. 80% of those results come from 20% of those efforts. So then that makes like a 64-4 rule. And if you do one more iteration, what we learn is that 51.2% of results come from 0.8% of efforts. Roughly translates to about a little over half of all success comes from one action. Is about how that translates. So my last big question for you is, what do you think is the one thing you do, maybe it's a mindset, maybe it's an action, that is responsible for the majority of your success?
So I start every day by doing outreach. I try to reach out to like potential blogs, potential podcasts, potential partners, influencers, random entrepreneurs just to network with. And I have kind of a process down. I use social media a lot. I use VAs a lot. But it really only takes me like 20 to 30 minutes, but I think it's the most valuable thing. And I think even if I don't do anything else the rest of the day, I've done more outreach than most entrepreneurs. And it adds up. Like, if you do that for a year, you're going to talk to a lot of people in your space. You're going to get a lot of opportunities. You're going to get partners, leads, podcasts, whatever it is. And you can kind of pick and choose what you do and don't want to do. But like, to me, that's been a game changer. I did that for 4 years of Free Up. First thing every morning, we got to know everyone in the e-commerce space. I think we were on every e-commerce podcast, every blog, had influencers promoting us. And that didn't happen overnight. That didn't happen until 2 years in. But if you're constantly doing outreach, and I'm not talking like hardcore pitching or selling or anything other than nice, professional, well-intentioned, to me, that's been a big key. And I think it's super underrated.
Is all of that effort put into a CRM? Is it tracked
no,
and
it's not.
managed?
It's honestly
Okay.
like not as organized as it probably could be. We do have certain trackers, especially for like podcasts and influencers, but like a lot of what I'll do is just like networking calls, and I'll look for connections. So I might go to your LinkedIn and be like, hey, who's Devin connected with, and see if there's anyone in there that's in my industry or does something or that I can learn from, and just shoot them a quick message. Hey, would love to connect, and see kind of where that leads.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, gotta be respectful of your time. I know we got a hard out coming up. So, Nathan, what is the best way for any of our listeners to keep in touch with you or keep up with what you have going on?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Nathan Hirsch. I always post content on hiring and bookkeeping. You can check out Outsource School. Shoot me an email there if you want a coupon, and if you're interested in bookkeeping, you get 2 months free if you mention this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, have a great weekend. I'll be back in your earbuds on Monday.